I'm Dan Jackman with Kentucky and Fly Tires, and tonight I'd like to tie for you a simple little midge pattern called a smoke jumper. Materials we'll be using is Peacock Herl and some CDC, and these are the CDC Puffs variety. I'll be tying it on a 2457 Tiemco size 18, and I'm going to be using olive brown 70 Denier thread. This smoke jumper is really popular out in the Bighorn in Montana. It can imitate many different types of emergers, mayfly patches, based on the color of the body and the materials used that would match the hatch. This 2457 is a curved. I like to use this. It's a small size hook for nymphs and midges. I'm going to start my thread just a little ways behind the eye. I'm going to bring it back to right where the barb used to be. Cut it off. Basically, at this point, I like to tie in the body. The body is a Peacock Herl that has been stripped. The easiest way to strip a Peacock Herl is, number one, use the herl that comes from the eye. The ones you buy in the packages that have been processed and dyed and all that, the follicles are really hard on them, and it's hard to get them off without breaking the quill on these. So basically, if you use a fresh peacock eye like this, you don't have to do the whole. All you have to do is just the center part of it. I leave the top part on, move it up, depending on the size of the hook, halfway for these 18s, up a little further. For the smaller ones, I like to wrap it down a little further around the bend. And then at this time, I spin my thread so I can open it up and lay down a nice, smooth body. And I take this body right to the front of the point of the hook and just let the thread hang there, cut off the top, discard it. I use a set of hackle pliers on these because it's easier to manipulate them around the hook. And I just wrap it and very gently weave it over the point and one right above the next, all the way around. Don't pull back on these or it'll snap. And just take your time and just wrap that, and you'll see that it'll be a segmented body, and you can work your way up the shank of the hook. And I like to take it right up to where the thread was tied, which is at the point of the hook, and then tie it off. I like to take two behind, one in front, then you can just pull that off, hold it right there. I also like to use this Loom UV clear finish on this. It's thin. And basically, I like to put a small body This does two things. It gives it a little luminescence in the water, plus it makes the quill a little hard, like a shellback, but the material still shows through. And you can see that it is a very luminescent. Once you run the UV light on it, it'll harden You can rotate it, catch it in. That's it. So the body's hard on this. What I'm going to use next is a CDC puff in white. You can use different colors. However, I think that the white shows the best. And what you need is the puffs, because they're small and they are really thick. Whereas the regular CDC feather is sparse with their follicles sticking out the sides. These are all going up into a ball at the top. And the way I do it is I spread these. Anything that sticks down below by the stem, just pick it off, let it go. I lay this on and try to do just a body measure. Once I have the right dimension, which is the body length of the fly, I take 2 wraps to hold it down and then recheck it to make sure that I'm at the right location. And then I'll tie it down and go forward. And then I can cut off the front. Now wrap this sack up towards the eye, and then I'll come back to where my original tie was. At this time, I like to clean up the white strands that are on the side of it. I take a cauterizing tool and just touch it. Being careful not to touch your thread. And gets that material out of your way. At this stage, I'll take a piece of Peacock Herl off of the feather, trim it. I like to go up the quill just a little ways to where the softer part of it is, and tie that in so it's not so stiff. I tie it in right at the beginning of the CDC puff, wrap forward to the eye with my thread, and then take 3 to 4 wraps with this Peacock. And then I'll tie that off. Once I tie that off, I hold up the Peacock at the top so you don't cut your thread, and cut that off, take another wrap. At this stage, I like to take my fly, loosen the vise, turn it upright so that it's now sitting in an upright position. I will grab the CDC and pull it forward, making a white, puffy thorax, pulling it right over the top of the CD or over the Peacock Herl, and make 1, 2 wraps right behind the eye. Pull that up, make a wrap underneath of it, around the eye, and then over the eye again. And then that way, your CDC will stand up. Whip finish. Odd.
Are you enjoying this?
So at this time, I pulled the CDC over the top of the Peacock Herl, trying to catch all the little fibers. Make 1, 2 wraps, pull it tight. Pull up the CDC in the front of the fly and tie it underneath of the I take a whip finisher. Okay, you can cut your thread. What I do next is I trim this CDC that's sticking out. And basically, I just use the cauterizer, and this basically just cleans up any little loose strands that are out. Makes for a neater body. Then I like to push that up, give it an upward glance, and I trim it just to give it a smoother look. And that is the smoke jumper. It's a easy pattern to fish. You can fish it as an emerger, like I said, in many different patterns, and I hope that you enjoyed it. We'd like to invite you to come out to Orvis on the second Thursday of every month, where we'll be tying flies, teaching new patterns, and we would hope that you would subscribe to our channel. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below.